Shy cabin cleaner sat in seat 8D when the cockpit called her for help in front of a CEO. Maria's hands trembled as she gripped the armrest of seat 8D, the very seat she had cleaned thousands of times but never dared to sit in. The leather felt foreign beneath her worn uniform, and the altitude pressed against her chest like a confession she'd been holding back for 20 years. She was a ghost in this world of first-class travelers, invisible until the moment the intercom crackled to life with words that would shatter everything she thought she knew about her place in the sky. "Is there anyone on board with flight training? We need immediate assistance in the cockpit." The cabin fell silent. And then, from across the aisle, a pair of sharp, calculating eyes belonging to Marcus Chen, CEO of the third largest airline in Asia, locked onto her face here because he had seen something flicker there that no one else had noticed. Recognition, knowledge, fear. If this story is already pulling at your heart, don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment below telling me what you think will happen next, and subscribe to Kindness Pulse for more incredible true-to-life stories that will restore your faith in humanity. Now, let's dive back in. Maria had spent 2 decades cleaning aircraft cabins at dawn, always arriving before the passengers, always leaving before they noticed. She was 43 years old, spoke broken English with a heavy accent, and had learned to make herself smaller over the years. Smaller in her movements, smaller in her voice, smaller in her dreams. But there was something nobody knew. Something she had buried so deep that sometimes even she forgot it was there. 15 years ago, in another country, in another life, Maria had been 3 months away from earning her commercial pilot's license. She had been top of her class at the Aviation Academy in Manila, with flight hours logged and a future as bright as the wings of the planes she now cleaned. Then her mother fell ill. Then the money ran out. Then the opportunity vanished like vapor trails in an empty sky, and she found herself on a one-way ticket to a new country, a new language, and a job that kept her close to the thing she loved most but would never touch again: a flight. The announcement came again, more urgent this time, the flight attendant's voice cracking slightly. "We have a medical emergency with both pilots. If there is anyone with any flight experience, please identify yourself immediately." Maria felt the blood drain from her face. She knew what was happening as she had read about it in the aviation newsletters she still subscribed to, even though she had no reason to anymore. Severe food poisoning. Both pilots incapacitated. A scenario so rare that most people thought it only happened in movies, but Maria knew better. She knew that in approximately 45 minutes, this aircraft would begin its descent towards Singapore, and if there was no one to guide it through the approach, everyone on board would become a statistic. But who was she to volunteer? A cleaning woman in a borrowed seat, wearing a uniform that smelled like disinfectant and defeat. She was nobody. She was nothing. She was a you-know-how-to-fly. It wasn't a question. Marcus Chen's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts like a knife through clouds. He had unbuckled his seatbelt and moved to crouch beside her, his $5,000 suit incongruous in the cramped space. His eyes weren't mocking or surprised, they were certain. "I've been watching you since we took off. You've been tracking every sound this aircraft makes, checking the wing flaps during takeoff, noting the altitude changes. That's not something a nervous flyer does. That's something a pilot does." Maria's throat closed. I just clean the planes, sir." "I don't stop," he interrupted, but not unkindly. "My company runs safety audits on every airline in this region. I know what training looks like. I know what passion looks like. And I know what fear looks like. Right now, I'm seeing all three in your eyes. So I'm going to ask you directly, can you help fly this plane?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with the weight of 237 lives. Maria's mind raced back to her final simulation before she had to leave the academy. A perfect landing in crosswinds, her instructor's rare smile, the way her hands had moved across the controls like a pianist playing her favorite song. She thought about her daughter, now 14, who had never known her mother had once touched the sky. She thought about all the times she had hidden her light because she was afraid of taking up too much space, of being too much, of failing. And then she thought about the children on this flight, the families, the futures hanging in the balance, and she realized that fear was a luxury none of them could afford. "I have 240 flight hours," she said quietly, her voice steadier than she expected. "But it's been 15 years. I don't have a license anymore. I don't know if he am." Marcus stood and offered his hand. "Then it's a good thing I'm the CEO of an airline and can authorize emergency crew in flight. Come on, we don't have time for doubt." The walk to the cockpit felt like walking through water, every step heavy with the eyes of passengers who were just beginning to understand that something was wrong. The lead flight attendant met them at the door, her face pale but composed. When she saw Maria, confusion flickered across her features, but Marcus spoke before she could object. "She's our best option. Let her through." Inside the cockpit, the scene was worse than Maria had imagined. Both pilots were conscious but violently ill, unable to focus, unable to function. The aircraft was on autopilot, but the approach to Singapore's Changi Airport was 15 minutes away, and autopilot couldn't navigate the complexity of landing in one of the world's busiest airspaces. Maria slid into the captain's seat, and despite the years, despite the fear, despite everything, her hands knew what to do. She reached for the controls, and it was like coming home. The next 30 minutes were the longest of Maria's life. Marcus stayed with her, reading off the technical manuals, coordinating with air traffic control, translating the rapid-fire instructions into simpler terms when her English faltered under pressure. She guided the aircraft through the initial descent, her rusty knowledge coming back in fragments: altitude calculations, heading adjustments, speed management. She made mistakes. She second-guessed herself. She felt the weight of every soul behind that cockpit door pressing down on her shoulders like gravity itself. But she didn't stop. When the wheels touched down on runway 2 with a slight bounce but nothing catastrophic, when the aircraft rolled to a safe stop and the emergency vehicles surrounded them with lights flashing, Maria's hands were still gripping the controls, shaking so hard she couldn't let go. Behind her, she could hear crying, cheering, the sound of relief so profound it felt like prayer. Before I tell you what happened next, if you're feeling inspired by Maria's courage, take a second to like this video and subscribe to Kindness Pulse. Your support helps us share more stories that remind us all of the extraordinary strength hiding in ordinary people. Thank you. Now let's finish Maria's story. Marcus Chen didn't just thank her. He didn't just shake her hand and disappear into the crowd of grateful passengers. Instead, he sat with her in that cockpit while the investigators came, while the media gathered, while the world discovered that a cabin cleaner had saved a plane full of people. And when they were finally alone again, he said something that would change her life forever. "My airline has a pilot shortage. We have a scholarship program for experienced candidates who need recertification. I'm making you my personal recommendation if you want it." Maria looked at him through tears that had been 15 years in the making. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for someone like me?" He smiled, and for the first time, she saw past the CEO to the human beneath. "Because 20 years ago, I was a janitor at an airport in Hong Kong. Someone saw potential in me when I couldn't see it in myself. I've been looking for a chance to pay that forward ever since." Beside us, he gestured to the aircraft around them. "You've already proven you belong here." 6 months later, Captain Maria Santos completed her recertification and joined Southeast Asian Airways as a first officer. She flew international routes, mentored young pilots, and never forgot where she came from. She kept her old cleaning uniform in her closet as a reminder that our past doesn't define our future, our courage does. And sometimes, the people who change our lives don't look like who we expect. Sometimes they're CEOs who remember being janitors. Sometimes they're cleaning women who were always pilots in their hearts. Sometimes the only thing standing between us and our dreams is the moment we decide to stop hiding and start flying. Maria learned that day what we all need to remember: you are not too small. You are not too late. You are not too anything. You are exactly who someone needs you to be. exactly when they need you most. The only question is whether you'll have the courage to take your seat and reach for the controls when your moment comes calling. And Maria, she never flew past an empty seat 8D without whispering a small thank you to the universe for second chances, for people who see us, and for the beautiful, terrifying truth that it's never too late to become who you were always meant to be.